Daphne. Hi there. How cold is it where you are today? I feel like I'm always doing a weather report. But actually, I'm surprised there's actually no ice on the water here at the Canton waterfront. Yesterday when I crossed the Bay Bridge across the Chesapeake Bay, there was chunky ice in the bay. I guess the Baltimore harbor's a little protected. It's about 22 degrees here right now. Ducks are enjoying it, I guess. Nasty seagulls. But a beautiful sunny day, even though it's still so bitter cold. Hey, Digger, how are you? This is the Baltimore waterfront at Canton. Canton is a historic neighborhood, one of the oldest neighborhoods in Baltimore, and a really important, as you can guess, part of trade and the history of trade in Baltimore. You can see some of the modern ships docked here, but going back all the way to the 1700s, ships from as far as Asia and the Far East came here with goods to trade and make their way across the United States. And then in the 1800s, by about the 1830s, there were railroad tracks here on what is now called Boston Street. The goods would be unloaded from the ships, put on the railroad tracks, and headed out across the country, very similar to the way they are now. You can see those big round structures there. Back in the day, those were used for oil. Exxon, the old Standard Oil, big ships would come here from the Gulf Coast and other places, and the oil would be unloaded here, and then it would be shipped out, probably like to the Delaware Valley to be refined. There are oil refineries and chemical refineries in Delaware. I don't think it was actually refined here. And those big round structures used to be everywhere here in Canton. And now only a few remain. I remember as a kid, one of them catching fire and a huge black cloud. And our school was actually put on, lockdown because of that fire. But this is the view of the Baltimore Harbor from the boat launch here in Canton. And straight ahead is Fort McHenry, although just the little teeny tiny storm flag is flying right now, not the great big garrison flag, and definitely not the replica of the Star-Spangled Banner. And then you can also see Locust Point and other parts of the Baltimore shipyard across the way. So Digger, railroad history here in Canton. I'm sure my dad has a photo of the old Canton Railroad Station, which would have been right here at this intersection up here. And the ships would be unloaded back in the day by people and small cranes. The ships would be unloaded and the cargo would be loaded onto the trains here. And today, Canton went through a renaissance in the late 80s with a lot of the empty vacant lots being filled with some new home construction. And then some companies and business came to Canton. You can see Care First, big insurance company, has a huge office here. That also used to be the First Mariner building, the headquarters of First Mariner Bank. I am freezing, Faye. Hey, John Travolta, 67, great to see you. But it's not windy. Yesterday it was so windy. My live stream yesterday was 14 minutes. So I'll go a little longer today, but I'm not gonna walk along the water because it is a little colder. If we were to go in this direction, we would be at the inner harbor of Baltimore. But we're gonna take a walk into the neighborhood of Canton, and we're gonna check out the historic buildings that used to be breweries. So Canton, huge for trade history, also very important in the history of beer making in and around Baltimore. Oh my gosh, Faye, you do take care. Hello, Hamdi. Hello, Kane. Nice to see you. Hi, Ryblocks. Very nice to see you. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful day today. I had to get outside. Full of potholes and broken windows. Okay, not this part of Canton, not the broken windows, but yes, the potholes. Baltimore City is notorious for absolutely terrible roads. I've lived here my whole life, so no one can argue about that. That is absolutely true. But the boarded up windows, this part of Baltimore has gone through a second renaissance, and kind of is the place to be. My parents still live here in a modest row house, but they are surrounded by 5-story super duper deluxe townhouses around them. This little boat here, Baltimore City Police, has a water unit, of course, because we're a city on the water. And so dotted around the harbor, Baltimore City Police boats out there to help as needed. And you kind of can't see through the trees, but there's also some utility boats there, probably for grabbing trash out of the harbor. And you probably can't see, but the harbor's quite clean. Back in the day, the harbor used to be filthy, ugly, dirty. And it's really quite clean. No, Lamar, I'm all right. I grew up with I grew up with Lamar. I grew up here. Yep, I get it. Faye's inside today. I think that's a smart thing to do, Faye. I do. This building here is the Marine Unit, one of the Marine units with their emergency rescue vehicles if anybody gets in trouble. And you can see there is no one on the water today. Nope, not happening. On a beautiful, calm summer day, you'll not only see people out in their pleasure boats, their little mini yachts, but you'd also see kayakers and canoers. Not today. Not today. So the main street that runs through the industrial part of Canton is Boston Street. I know it makes no sense. It's Boston. We're in Maryland, not Massachusetts. This is Boston Street. And right about here where I'm standing would have been the old Canton Railroad Station. Right about here. And I'm sure there's a picture of it. It was still here in the 80s. I'm sure I can find a picture somewhere. Now here's where there's no sidewalk. And there's also no light for crossing the street. So a little dangerous for us pedestrians. Hopefully someone will be kind enough and let me through. Thank you. And I'll have to walk around the ice. There we go. Okay. Let's get into the residential neighborhood here. No, yeah, you'd have no chance. Although actually the water's probably warmer than the air today, for sure. Now this park here, this is a soccer complex. The local high schools use it. My high school played on this little patch. Oh, the goal's busted and broken. Back in the day, this was just an empty lot. And back in the day, this facility, which is the Dew Burns Copper Mine Soccer Arena, this used to be the park here. So this would have been the ball field here. I'm walking north on East Avenue. You can see up this hill, Botz's Church on the right of the street. And I will say, you still see these big, huge piles of snow. You know, as I'm walking through Washington, D.C., I often share that it's a flat city, right? It's easy to walk through Washington, D.C. for the most part, except for Capitol Hill and the area around Rock Creek. Baltimore, not so much. Baltimore is a hilly city, dominated by a few big hills. There's Hampstead Hill, which was a chief fortification and defense during the War of 1812. And we're walking toward Brewers Hill, where, guess what? We're going to find the old breweries. And currently, nice little townhomes. Hey Fox, how are you? Great to see you. All right, I'm still trying to get this phone call to go away. I shut my phone off and put my no notification on, and it still called. I'm still learning. Every stream, something new. These little tiny streets in Baltimore, this one is Bolden Street. Little townhomes on both sides, dating back to the 1800s. So next to the newer construction, this is newer construction, the smaller row homes, I won't call them townhomes, the smaller row homes date back to about the 1890s. And they've been renovated over the years, but they're still the same construction. This area was populated by people who worked at the Port of Baltimore, people who worked on the railroad. Baltimore is an industrial city. These are blue-collar neighborhoods. Now, some of these row homes, you can see the two smaller ones there have kept essentially their historic facades. Others have new facades plus an extra level put on top and a roof deck on top of that. It's a really big deal here in Canton, Highlandtown, Fells Point to have a roof deck. And they keep adding on and adding on, truly just to make more room. You know, these little tiny townhomes are tiny, 3-4 stories. Fox has had some good sleep. The sun is already setting on this side of the Atlantic. I'm sorry to hear that, Fox. We've got some good sunshine today. Hey, good morning. As cold as it is, we've got some good sun. Hey, and I've got some sidewalk here, so that's a good thing. Hi, Channel. Nice to see you. Hey, Channel, tell me, how cold is it where you are, and where are you? This little tiny building here. Oh, I don't know if you could hear the train. Hearing a train. I'll show you where the train tracks still are today. This is the old Canton Baptist Church. It's still the Canton Baptist Church. This building goes back to the 1800s. And has been here ever since. Many of these smaller townhomes on this side also go back to like the 1880s, 1890s. Baltimore is known for stained glass transoms above the doors. It's also known for painted screens, which we rarely see, unfortunately. I don't think people do the painted screens anymore here. Whoa. Oh my gosh, the sidewalk. Now this is typical. This is a good view of the typical restored brick. Now Baltimore went through this dreadful period where many homeowners decided to make their homes look like stone And so they put fake stone over their brick. And the fake stone was called form stone. And it still exists in many places today. But many other homes, like this row here, have removed the form stone to expose the original brick again. And I think it looks fantastic. This is Toone Street, Toone. And I love the combination of the dark painted window frames next to the white painted window frames. Hi, Ashwani. Oh, thank you so much for watching from India. That's fabulous. Thank you. Glad to have you with us. Now, many of these homes, 2 stories plus a basement, so a little bit of room over here. Some of the homes closer to the water don't have basements. They just have dirt cellars. The house I grew up in, 1 block from here, had a dirt cellar, so no basement. And yep, that's where I did my earliest archaeology, in that very dirt cellar. And I did find a few things, by the way. Oyster shells and a chain. But these homes have been cared for. Now, they also have very, very small backyards. And so many of these homes have little flower pot gardens, container gardens in the front of the house. Just to add a little decor. I do not know why this street is so busy right now. Lucky me. But I want to turn around and actually show this side of the street, which is a little harder to see because of the sun. But these 2 houses, second and third from the corner, one with red shutters and one with blue shutters. These were the first in the entire neighborhood of Canton to be restored in the very, very early 1980s. And how do I know that? Well, it's because I lived here. And because I remember the restoration on these houses, taking down the form stone, exposing the brick. These were the first homes to do that. And it made other homeowners realize how beautiful that really was. And it was a cascade effect, a ripple effect, and other homeowners did the same. They also preserved their stained glass transom above their windows and doors. And back then, some of them kept the screen paintings, but today there are very few screen paintings left in Baltimore. And you can see on this one, you can see the stained glass above that big window. Now, this big apartment complex was not here. This is relatively new. And these were empty lots back in the day, and probably warehouses for the breweries. Is this Bayless Street? I think we're on Bayless. Yep, we're on Bayless. And now, you know I love a bank. This is not a bank. This is the former Canton Police Station. And it's apartments now. And the owner has lovingly kept the facade, as well as those beautiful light globes that are typical of police stations. So this used to be the police station way back in the day here in Canton. That's such a good view of that block. But now we're getting into the definitely heavy-duty industrial area here. I'm sorry, the sun is right in the lens here, but the building I'm shooting at right now is the Southwestern Broom Company, also the Atlantic Broom Company. And you can just barely see that ghost sign. You probably can't see it because I'm shooting right into the sun. I'll try to take a look if I can get a little farther east here. I'll shoot back on it. I do too, Digger. I do too. That's why I love walking around. So if you can kind of see this, it says Atlantic Southwestern Broom Company, Little Brooms. I think it says Little Nugget Brooms. Little Nugget Brooms? Okay. But even, again, back in the 80s and 90s, when I was a kid, that was still a broom company. Today there are shops in the building. All of these big, huge warehouse manufacturing buildings have been preserved. There's restaurants here now, apartment buildings. I think it's really cool to walk around here. Now this was part of the old National Brewing Company. Shops and things here. This was part of the Gunther Brewing Company. And you can see that sign there that says Gunther Apartments at Brewers Hill. There's also a great restaurant that we're going to pass by in just a second. We'll do a circuit of these buildings and then we'll come back around, and then you'll be able to see when we walk down Elliott Street, you'll be able to see the lettering at the top of this building. But I want to walk this way while the traffic is stopped, taking the opportunity to cross the street. Thank you. Yeah, no cornerstone. Sometimes I make sure I look at the corners of these buildings to see if there's a cornerstone. Now this building dates back, I know I keep saying the late 1800s, but this dates back to the late 1800s, probably about 1885-ish. I could be wrong, but I do know that Frederick and Anna Wonder established and actually built out the National Brewing Company. There were a lot of Germans in Baltimore in the 1800s. This was before there was a wave of Germans in the very early 1800s, like the 1810s and 20s. And they established themselves, and then another wave came over in the 1870s and 80s. And almost everybody knew somebody who could brew. And there's the top of the smokestack there with the G for Gunther. But these buildings here, all part of the original brewery. Today, offices and apartments. Now this building here that I'm looking at, this is new. And this is really dramatic here. All of the building that we're gonna see. This area used to be empty lots and those great big oil tankers. And now it's just the place to be. It's a lot of snow. That's like 6 feet. That's like 6 feet of snow. But where's it gonna go? It's not melting. This is Gunther and Company restaurant. It's quite a good restaurant. I've been here. If you're lucky enough to visit Baltimore and dine inside Gunther, you will also see that not only have they preserved the outside of this building, they've preserved a lot of the inside of the building. So there's like a grain scale in there and an old clock and all kinds of cool stuff in the restaurant that harkens back to the original brewer. Hey, Abe, we're at a brewery. Hey, Johnny V. It is cold. It's 22 degrees right now, but there's no wind. Yesterday, I streamed for 14 minutes yesterday, and I couldn't do any more. It was way too cold. Today, it's 20. It's made it to 20. And the sun's out and there's no breeze. All of this brand new construction. I can't believe how many apartments are here. The population of Canton has probably quadrupled in the last few years. But that's a great view of the restaurant there. And yeah, folks are going for brunch after church. This is definitely a spot. I've done it. Brunch after church. It's the eggs with the, they do eggs with feta cheese. Oh my gosh, they're so good. They have a raw bar. Obviously we're in Baltimore, so seafood's a big deal. But this is Gunther's. So check it out, but you need reservations. So make sure you get your reservations and come hang out at Gunther's. All around this area, You'll see these signs. Can you tell what they are? They're bottle caps. They're bottle caps with a nod to the brewing heritage here in this neighborhood. So some of the directional signs and signs for some of the businesses here are bottle caps. All right, I'm not shooting the restaurant. The windows are right there. I'm not going to shoot the camera right into the restaurant windows. But on a better day, when there's not snow on the ground, outdoor terrace here, outdoor bar here, looks very different when it's not 20 degrees outside, for sure. We'll walk up the hill. This is the Barley building, and the buildings have names, again with a nod to the brewing. And these are all new. These used to be empty lots, nothing here, or old falling down warehouses, big storage facilities. I want to see how far I can get up here. I think I have to go to the main street. Climbing up the hill. Oh, that's cool, Fox. I like the bottle cap signs. Love that. When I found a big jar of bottle caps in one of my great-grandfather's barns, I was like, oh, he collected bottle caps. My dad said, nope, that was used for a different thing. And the reason why you had bottle caps in a jar in a barn is when you were making your own moonshine and you needed a bottle cap. So yeah, great-granddad collected bottle caps for a very specific purpose. And you can just start to see the top of this building, the National Brewing Company. And at the very tippy top, if you know Natty Boh, that is Mr. Boh. And Mr. Boh is a neon sign. He lights up. It's really hard to see when we're this close. And he winks. So he's got one eye in his profile shot here. And at night, he blinks and winks. And the neon is different colors for different times of year. When the Ravens were still in good play, he'd be purple. For the Orioles, he'd be orange. Sorry, my mouth is freezing right now. This big building, built in the very late 1890s. Yes, this big, huge building. Built by Frederick and Anna Wonder, who owned this brewery at the tippy top of Brewers Hill. And today you can go up on the roof and get an amazing view of all of Baltimore from the top of this building, of course. And from the top of this hill, you can see all the way down to the shipyard there. And this is the Barrel building. And all of these, there's a bottle cap of the Stag beer, Colt 45, Schaeffer's beer. There was one with a P, Peels, Schaeffer, Gunther. And that motto over there, Brewers Hill, the land of pleasant living. That was the motto for National Beer, the land of pleasant living. And they had all these cartoon characters. There were other breweries here. These are the ones that remain. This is O'Donnell Street. These are the buildings that remain. But there were a few other buildings around here. And I remember one that had a mural on the wall with all of those cartoon characters from National Beer. It was like a pirate and a parrot. I'm gonna have to look that up because I remember those cartoon characters. And you can kind of see if I can get farther down here and get a view of that sign. And you can see that the Canton neighborhood has adopted Mr. Boh as its unofficial mascot. Canton Storage Company with Mr. Boh. This building here, you've heard me mention a pub on every corner, a bar on every corner. This one is still a bar of Love and Regret, OLAR. But there were bars on every corner in Canton, and there still are quite a few. This one's a hair salon though. We'll go a block or so down. Okay. All right, I'm checking for cars. Yeah, we'll get a better view of it, Digger. All right, so from here, oh, and I'm in the shade too. So that's the big National building. Also around the corner, oh, and it's so just, oh, there it is. It says it was built between 1885 and 1889. It says it on the side of the building there. So it was built between 1885 and 1889. Also around the other end, they used to have a water tanker that was painted like a beer can, and that's gone. And I have a photo of it. I'll put it in the on the community page of my channel. I will put the photo of the water tower or the water storage tank that was painted like a beer can. Now this one here that says Brewers Hill, this was Schaeffer's Brewery. This building right here. Just this little corner was Schaeffer's. And it used to have a sign at the top that said Schaeffer's and Peels, I think. I keep saying Peels. I think that's what it was called. And we'll head down O'Donnell Street. The farther away we get, the better view we'll get of those beautiful buildings. And along the way here, we'll get to see some more beautiful Baltimore brick row homes. What's the difference between a row home and a townhome? The row homes were built all together, and you won't see a seam between the brick. The brick will be continuous across the homes like they are here. These are row homes. Essentially one keeps calling. Townhomes were individually built, so not all one big structure. And the townhomes, that's what you generally see in Washington, D.C. And there's an example of that form stone next to the brick. And another great view of that National Brewing building with Mr. Boh on top, who lights up at night. And because this is on top of a hill, you can see that Mr. Boh from throughout a good part of Baltimore. It's really cool at night. Now these buildings here, as you might guess, these 4- and 5-story buildings, when you count the basement, these are not original. The one on the corner is, and this was probably a shop, maybe a pharmacy back in the day. But these other buildings, that third one in, that's been added on to, and then you can start to see the roof, terraces, and patios that were built here. This is O'Donnell Street. This is a really busy street, so there's a stop sign at every corner, if not a traffic light. And it's a good thing because people go super fast down this street. The way we're walking now, this is heading into the city. The downtown area. Woo! There goes that wind. You know, I said there was not a lot of wind, and all of a sudden, in a wind tunnel. Hi, Eileen. Great to see you. Great to see you. Yeah, I'm sorry. The stream keeps stuttering because my dad keeps calling me. And I love my dad. I know why he's calling. It's not an emergency. I know why he's calling. I love him to death. I'm about a block from his house. I'll be there shortly, Dad. He's just letting me know he's home. Okay, my dad should not have been out this morning. It was probably about 14 degrees when my dad went out on his adventure. This is where I get it from this morning. He should not have. So he's going to get a scolding too. This corner bar, this used to be Phil's Colonial. And I also have a picture of this corner bar, which I will post to the community section of my, or the post, whatever it is, the post section of my page. Because I do have some great old photos of this area. Get another view with a traffic light in the way of these buildings up on the hill. So you can see we're coming down the hill now, heading toward Canton Square. And I am in quite a wind tunnel. I like this. I love when I find a facade that's been stuccoed. That's really cool. And it lends so much variety on this block of, these are restored brick, because this block used to be all form stone. So it's nice to see a stucco to break up the monotony. That is quite beautiful. I love that. And yeah, because there are teeny tiny alleys that are either not passable or not plowed, the garbage cans are out front. I know every crack in the street in that alley, because that's the alley between my house and my grandparents' house. And I would run through the alley to get from my house to my grandparents' house. This corner here, this has been a deli or a cafe forever, since the 1950s, maybe even before the 1950s. It's had a bunch of different names, but it's always been a little cafe. And this corner here was Curex hardware store. It's a home now, but this was a community that was a self-sufficient community. So you had your banks, your corner stores, lots of bars, little cafes, hardware store, florist, library just down the way, and more examples of outrageous roof terraces here. Holy moly, look at that. That's a double-decker roof deck on that one. These have all been restored on this side of the street. And as you can see, everyone, a lot of neighbors have these signs for their house numbers. Kind of the trend here. The little metal signs. These little alleys on long blocks. There was a little gap between houses for a lot of reasons. If for some reason there was an emergency in the backyard and you couldn't get out, there had to be a way in between the houses. Also, it was your way to get to the back door from the front, because back in the day, the front room was the salon, and some of the old ladies didn't let people in the front door unless you were like a fancy guest. And so if you were just, you know, a member of the family or a kid, you weren't allowed through the front door because that's where the nice furniture was. And so you had to come through the back door. So to get there, you had to go through these little alleys in between the home. This little bar, this is Mike McGovern's. I don't think it's operational anymore. There's always been a bar in the middle of this block. Now this one here with the container garden outside, we'll cross the street to get a really good look at this building because this is a former bank. You know I love bank buildings. This is a great old former bank here. And we'll go across to take a look. Careful on the ice. Oh, this is definitely ice. Okay. We're good. But before we turn and take a look at the bank, there is that Gunther sign on that part of that brewery complex that we just left. This was a former corner store called Mr. Heinstein's store. This, ladies and gentlemen, is where I bought my Transformers comics. This corner store right here. I bought Transformers. My brother bought G.I. Joe when this was a corner store. This is Canton National Bank. And it is magnificent. It has been a bakery after it stopped being a bank. It was a bakery. They made pitas here and naan bread here at this facility, but it's always kept this character as a bank. You can see at the top the old Buffalo nickel and the Liberty dollar. That pretty cool patio balcony out front, and those great big bank doors on the front of this building here in this neighborhood. Now that was a bank, but we also had savings and loans, little community banks, smaller community banks here in this neighborhood. And there's another stucco. This is Elliott Street. You can see some of the preserved stained glass. And someone driving way too fast down this street. Jesus, people. Tell you what. Oh, and this one with Mr. Boh and the Maryland flag on that transom. Lots of pride in, you know, keeping these homes looking nice, keeping some of that historic character. This used to be Mr. Timmy's convenience store. Has that great balcony on the second floor. You knew it was Christmas time when Mr. Timmy put a silver tree and a red bell in those windows. That was his Christmas decorations. And as a kid, you kind of waited for those decorations. And then all the other neighbors did their decorations. This used to be a pub, another corner bar, Miss Dolores's pub. Lots of variety on this block. This is a one-way street now. Used to be two-way and had a bus route going up and down it. Can you imagine this little street with a bus route? But now the population has just exploded in this area with all the people living in apartments and all the condos. There's no place to park. And definitely no room for buses. Oh, there's more stucco. Okay, I like the stucco. There's some good old form stone next to that Baltimore brick. Now here, you've seen me on this corner before. This is a savings and loan building. This, please don't let this car turn. This is fantastic. Again, back to the 1800s. As you can tell, because I keep saying back to the 1800s, Baltimore was super vibrant. From about the 1870s onward, when industry just exploded and the railroad. And this is a beautiful block here. Thank you so much for joining me today on this little walk, super cold walk. I've made it longer than I did yesterday. I hope everyone has a nice warm week ahead of them wherever they are. I hope wherever you are, though, you get out, you get exploring. I'd love to hear from you on the community page about where you are and what you like to explore. And I'll put some photos in the community section or the post section, whatever it's called. Some older pictures of some of those buildings that we looked at today. Have a fantastic week ahead. Daphne, thank you for joining. Abe, thank you. Digger, Vladimir, Anthony. Anthony, this is Baltimore. Fox, great to see you. Eileen and everyone else. Take care.